Brother, start cleaning those tires up. On green this time. Remember, they fan out down there, so protect that bottom. Sunday drive. All right, boss man. Take the cars off. Be ready. Bud, be ready. Gas that bitch up. Ready. Green flag. Green.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Pass on WSIC. I am Randy Miller, Tom Baker, sitting over in the Soman seat, and our third wheel, Nick Degroot, will join us in just a little bit to talk all things NASCAR and everything that's going on. We've reached the sixth of 8 races that we are scheduled to run in the first 11 days. They have all been very fantastic races, and we'll talk all about most of them, or at least kind of a summarize what we've seen so far from the 4 races at Darlington and the 2 at Charlotte. We have more action coming up tonight as the Gander Outdoor Truck Series returns to action after 95 days in the garage area. They are back in action tonight, so we'll break that race down for you as well. And the Cup Series returns to action tomorrow night, although with the weather forecast for tomorrow, I think that race is going to be on Thursday. So yeah. I'm no meteorologist, but yeah, it's been an 80% chance of rain tomorrow, so I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, there's a chance of rain tonight, too.
There is. I think it's like 20 or 25% chance, so they might get the truck race in. Yeah. But they've been plagued by rain the entire time they've been in Charlotte, so it's whatever. I mean, at this point, I'll take a little bit of a rain delay over no race at all. So, but what we can tell you, last night, if you did not catch the Xfinity Series race last night, you missed a fantastic race from start to finish. I mean, the race was absolutely incredible. Kyle Busch ended up winning the race, but I think, Tom, if he had about another lap and a half or so, I think Daniel Hemrick probably would have won that race because he was coming on quick.
Well, he was, but of course we'll never know.
We will never know.
You know, that's and again, there were so many stories in that race. Kyle winning is not really a story per se. You just sort of expect
it's like repeat.
Yeah, but there's so many other stories in that race. Daniel Hemrick winding up second. You had Justin Allgaier make a huge comeback after an early race mistake. So many of kind of the mid-pack teams having good runs last night. Dylan Bassett, 13th place for his team. He's a local here to the greater Winston-Salem area. You just so many good stories in that race, and a few that were heartbreak stories too, right? Tommy Joe Martins, for one. Man. First top 10 finish ever was in the works for him, and he was running solid and got tripped up when Noah Gragson lost control and took out a couple of cars. And again, nothing Noah could do. The car just got away from him. But, man, the race was so full of stories throughout, comers, goers. And as you said, it was a great race from start to finish, I thought, and really showed the Xfinity Series very well.
Yeah, for sure. And, talk about Tommy Joe Martins. I know he had posted on social media, after the race about how dejected he was and, how he thinks that, maybe a top 10 is never going to happen for him because those guys with the lower funded teams or the lower, tier teams in the series, it's devastating for those guys because you have to think about the fact that, of course, we haven't been racing for the last 2 months. So these guys in the lower funded teams haven't been getting paid, and they rely on those payments and those paychecks from NASCAR in order to keep their teams going. So when you have a team like his that is struggling for sponsorship and struggling for to make ends meet, and then to go out and literally destroy a race car in 10 seconds is devastating for that team from a financial standpoint, much more so than from a mentality standpoint, or from the standpoint of I had a top 10 finish that I was about to get, and it had it taken away from me by Noah Gragson, which Noah's a great driver and mistakes happen. We all get that, but his team is probably already has another car ready to go, whereas Tommy Joe's team, that one car may take several weeks, months to fix and get ready for another race.
Yep.
So
absolutely,
that's the main thing. As we said, top to bottom, it was a great race. Kyle Busch did win. One of the things I saw in the race too is a lot of competitiveness from guys like Ross Chastain and Austin Cindric, which, they're guys that are always competitive anyways, but anytime Kyle's in the field, you automatically assume that Kyle's going to win the race.
For sure.
And there were times when, obviously Kyle was dominant, but there were other times where he wasn't so dominant and he had to run his way up through the field, but he had passed both of those guys set points in the race, and they ended up passing him back. So I think this race last night was much more competitive with Kyle in the field than some of the other races we've seen where Kyle just goes out and, wins the pole or whatever and just dominates from start to finish. This race much more competitive, and some of those guys, I'm starting to see where guys are not willing to lay down for Kyle Busch. Not that they do anyway, but it's a much more aggressive situation now where they're like, okay, this is getting old now. We're going to start showing you that we are just as competitive, with better equipment or equal equipment than what he has.
Well, I think more of the equipment is starting to become better. Right, is really the deal. I mean, and I also think that some of that, if you really look at the way the race played out. Kyle had some issues with some of the guys on restarts, right? I mean, Chastain had good restarts. It was, I thought it was a very interesting, Cindric had good restarts. I thought it was very interesting on the initial restarts. It wasn't so easy for Kyle to just drive around everybody, but once he got around them, he was able to open up a little bit of an advantage. And it was clear that his experience, even on that last lap pass, that was racecraft. Yeah. He basically just smoked Austin Cindric on experience. He used the side draft the way that a veteran would, and Austin gave him just enough room to get underneath to be able to be in that position to do that. Yep. If Austin hadn't gone, 20 miles an hour too fast into that corner, Kyle Busch doesn't get to the bottom, and maybe we have a different outcome, but that's Kyle's craft. He's back there. He's going to do something, and he worries you to death. And so, that's where I think the difference lies right now. When Kyle gets in an Xfinity car, gets into a truck, he's racing against a lot of drivers, the majority of whom have far less experience than he does. Right. And, of course, he also has equal or best equipment in the right? So exactly. It's kind of the Mark Martin Winn-Dixie sort of thing. Yep. The experience wins. And that's what I think we saw last night is Kyle's experience and his skill set, his craft won because he snookered Austin Cindric into doing what he did, and then he took advantage of it. And you can't hate Kyle for that. No. That was, and I got to tell you, that App State car was one of the sharpest looking race cars
for sure.
I've seen on any track in a long time. That was a badass car.
I'm not used to seeing him in the 54 car, though. It confuses me sometimes. We are going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, we'll have Nick Degroot from motorsport.com with us to break down the rest of the racing action from Charlotte and Darlington, and we'll be back with more of the Inside Pass right after this.
When you get in your car this afternoon, tune to News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, and get the latest breaking news and weather for your commute.
Did you know that Vesuvius Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria caters? That's right. Give them a call today at 704-924-7464, 704-924-7464, and let them make planning your next event or family gathering effortlessly. They're right at the Lowe's Shopping Center, 118 Ventura Lane, Statesville. You won't find a better Italian restaurant anywhere. That's Vesuvio's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria, 118 Ventura Lane, Statesville.
For WSIC, I'm Fox 46 meteorologist Nick Koser. Overnight, that low will drop down to about 63 under cloudy skies. Tomorrow, more clouds, more rain, 90% chance for showers and storms. Some of those showers will be heavy, a high of 72. Thursday, cloudy, a 60% chance for rain, and a high of 82. From the Neighborhood Storm Watch Forecast Center, I'm meteorologist Nick Koser. Be sure to catch Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane today on Fox 46 News at 5.
From Black Automotive, here's Rick Tron.
In these uncertain times, there is one thing that will never change. If you are searching for a great car buying experience, you can find it at Black Automotive Group on Salisbury Road in Statesville. The manufacturers are resuming production, and we must begin now to make room for the new arrivals. Right now, there are terrific deals on new 2020 and 2019 Buick and GMC models. You can qualify for 0% interest for up to 84 months on most Buicks and GMCs. Test drive the all-new Encore GX with several to choose from and discounts up to $2,500. At Black Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, you can save thousands with Employee Pricing Plus on most Compass, Cherokee, Grand Cherokee, and Wrangler models. Take advantage of 120 days until your first payment with Chrysler Capital. We have over 150 pre-owned vehicles to choose from with low bank rate financing as low as 2.99%. Now's the time to practice your social distancing in a new car or truck from the Greater Car Trader, Black Automotive Group, Salisbury Road, Statesville.
For all your automotive needs, visit Black Automotive Statesville.
Hey, I'm looking for some lumber.
Well, what kind do you need?
Well,
we've got T&G, shiplap, rough sawn, dressed, edge and center bead, C and better, hardwood, composite, and LVL.
Gosh, I didn't realize there was so much to choose from.
Well, at Little Shavers, we know wood. No need to visit the big box stores. Little Shavers Wood Shop is located just 7 miles east off I-77 in Statesville.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Kannapolis turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Hello, race fans. This is Chris Wright. Thanks for listening to these guys. Man, what some great radio hosts. You're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC. Randy Miller, Tom Baker here with you, talking everything NASCAR related. There are other series out there in the motorsports world, just in case you think, why are you guys always talking about NASCAR? Because it's the only thing going right now. IndyCar will start next week at Texas, so we'll have a preview of the IndyCar series season next week here on the program. Right now, we are going to go to the stripmasters.com hotline and talk to our good buddy Tom. Now that he has a budding IndyCar iRacing career, it's very hard and difficult to get him to come on our show now.
Fee.
So he doubled his fee.
He doubled his fee.
And so Nick Degroot joins us from motorsport.com.
0 to twice 0.
Good morning, buddy. What's going on?
Good morning, guys. How are you? Ready for Tuesday night racing?
Well, yeah, we were ready for Monday night racing too. That was a fantastic race last night. What did you think about last night's Xfinity race?
I loved it, but one thing I kept thinking about during it was the aero package during the Cup race and how the Cup race would have looked if it had a package more similar to the Xfinity series.
That's true. That's very true. Those cars looked really kind of like all over the place last night, which is what makes the Truck Series competitive too, which makes it exciting for the race tonight too. But
we were having more green flag passes for the lead on restarts in that race than we did in the first 300 miles of the Cup race.
Maybe you should go show them how it's done. I mean, you have a budding iRacing career now in the IndyCar series, so maybe you should go and show them how restarts are done.
It just made me wish the cars drove before this package. You know, like not every race was amazing like that, but it was just cool to be able to see them on the edge, wheeling the things the way they were. Kyle Busch and Ross side drafting each other. That racing towards the end of the race, people sideways out of control, barely hanging on to it. I just missed that in the 600.
Yeah, it's those composite bodies. I think NASCAR, the Cup cars, should have those composite bodies. I think that's what would make a huge difference with how the cars handled and stuff.
I don't know. That's interesting. I think it maybe that's some of it. I think it's a combination, really, I think it's the aero package in general. I mean, if you look at the difference between the Xfinity package and the Cup package, and again, I don't know how much the composite bodies play into that. That might be a great point, but I do agree with Nick's with Nick's point, though, that the racing was way better last night than it was on Sunday night. And, you know, you never expect the racing in the 600 to be great all the way through. It's an endurance test. That's what the 600 has always been. And now the cars are so good and they're so durable and they're so, you know, they don't break, they don't spin easily. So you kind of get into a mode in a race like the 600 where everybody just starts running laps off, and it just seems like, you know, I know they're running hard, but the racing aspect isn't there. And even at the end of the 600, there wasn't a ton of racing per se. I mean, you know, Brad won, and there wasn't really much doubt about the outcome coming to the flag. You know, last night, totally different story, Nick. It was just a great race, and a race that I think, again, the Xfinity Series needed a race like that. I feel bad for some of the guys that got caught up in the incidents. But for the most part, I thought the action was great all night. And you're right, Chastain and Kyle Busch put on a great show, and Austin Cindric as well. Both of those guys deserve a ton of credit for how hard they raced Kyle. They made him earn that race for sure.
And you want to know how you know it's a good Xfinity race? Kyle Busch won, and I did not hear that many people complaining on Twitter.
Well, I think everybody's just waiting for him to get to 100 to see if he actually retires at that point from Xfinity competition. Just let him win the next 3 or 4, and let's see.
I think he said 97 after last night.
Yeah, I think it was 97.
So
I think he's got
3 more.
Yeah. I think one of the things that and Nick, what you were talking about too with this race being so exciting is a lot of the NASCAR guys I hear talking about how easy the NASCAR Cup cars are to drive. Like, they just get in there and they just kind of floor it basically and just kind of keep it straight, and it pretty much drives itself. And I think that's what a lot of fans are wanting the 2022 car to mimic is a much more difficult car to drive, where it's more about your expertise and your ability to drive a race car no matter how it handles, as opposed to the cars we have now, which are just pretty much anybody can get in and run fast and be competitive in those cars.
Yeah, I think the next generation car will help it. I did not like when the news came out that it's being pushed another year to 2022, but we understand with these extraordinary circumstances why they had to do that. But yeah, I do think that's going to help a bit with the racing, and I look forward to bringing it into the sport, because the way the package is now, it's pretty rough on the 1.5 races.
Yeah, that's for sure. So obviously, NASCAR is doing all of this with the protocols and the safety ideas and stuff that have been mandated by all the states that NASCAR is going to. I know that North Carolina had a bunch of the health officials at the track on Sunday to kind of oversee how things went. Apparently, they were all very impressed with how NASCAR is handling the protocols for guys coming in and out of the racetrack. But obviously, the thing that's missing the most is the fans. And we all want fans back in the stands as much as anybody, because as much as it doesn't really convey on TV, I mean, being there in person and seeing the race is a much different spectacle in and of itself. And having the fans there, especially for victory lane celebrations and stuff, makes things a whole lot better. I feel like the boos would have been a whole lot worse had the fans been there last night when Kyle won his race. But at the same time, if you were in charge of having the protocols to put fans back in the stands, how do you think NASCAR should go about putting fans back in the stands? I feel like it's safe enough with a different, maybe a little bit different tweaking of the safety protocols, but I feel like we're at a place in NASCAR where we could at least bring 30% capacity into the stands, maybe something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't have all the info at my disposal that NASCAR does, but I don't think they're ready to do that. I think they need to wait. I think they need to continue to just do what they're doing, keep this good press going, because imagine they bring in some fans and suddenly a bunch of people come down with it. Even if it wasn't NASCAR's fault, suddenly NASCAR's getting all the blame. I think they need to wait. They need to follow the lead of what's going on around them. When other things like concerts and events like that start coming back open, and they seem to have no problem, I think then NASCAR should follow their lead and start slowly allowing fans back that way. But I don't think you want to be – it was good to be the first sport back. I don't think you want to be the first one bringing in big gatherings like that.
That's true.
I don't think you want to be the guinea pig there.
Exactly. That is true.
See, I have mixed emotions on that. I think you have to base your situation on where you are, literally. I mean, mm-hmm. I really believe that everything I'm hearing tells me anyway that on the 4th of July at Indy, they want fans.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Indy is a big enough venue. You could bring in 40,000 fans, which would be a great turnout for a NASCAR race, and it may be more than that because we're doing the doubleheader with IndyCar. Mm-hmm. So you could bring in 80,000 and still space them out to the point where, you're safely social distancing. I think it's going to be venue driven for a little while. So I'm not disagreeing with Nick's larger point. I guess I'm just saying that I'm not so bullish or bearish, I guess, on the idea that we're the first ones to bring a crowd back. Because I think the key is if you can find a way to do it reasonably, then you should have no fear of bringing a crowd back. But I also think, I mean, there are areas of the country, the Northeast, for example, they're all blue states, and those states are simply not going to open as quickly as the other states. It's just that simple. And so they're going to have a harder time. I mean, I think, for example, in New York, Watkins Glen will race, but I don't think they're going to be allowed to have fans. I could be wrong. By August, maybe,
Right.
Cuomo will be, but I doubt it. So I think this is more about government still and municipalities, unfortunately. I think it's more about that than it is the safety of actually bringing fans back, because we're not seeing in areas where you've had gatherings or whatever, you're not seeing these massive outbreaks that everybody is trying to tell you is going to happen. It's just not happening. So I don't know that it's as much about that as it is just figuring out the way to do it responsibly. But I do think it's going to be kind of awkward because, like I said, it appears as though Indy really wants fans. And I think the governor is trying to sort of make that happen on the 4th of July. So unless you sort of see this, hey, it's 4th of July and look at us, we're all allowing, gatherings again as some sort of, see how we did it. We flattened the curve enough and now we can all go back to, unless you see that from municipalities, I think we can have fans here, or not there kind of thing. I don't know how you really deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm just glad I'm not the one doing it.
NASCAR is the only sport that's on right now. I mean, I know the PGA Tour came back this past weekend. NBA is getting ready to start their season, and baseball as well. But I think when all the other sports start back, then each sport is going to be competing to find out which sport is going to be the first one to allow fans back, because they want to be the first one to do it, because I feel like they think that if they allow fans in the stands, it'll be much more of an open area for fans to be, I like NASCAR more now because I got to go to my NASCAR race when I couldn't go to, you know what I mean? So, but at the same time, like Nick said, you can't be too, giddy to be the first one, because what happens if that does happen, and you do get those outbreaks and, they go, oh, well, yeah, you raced, 8-9 races in a row with no problem, and as soon as you allow fans back in the stands, now you have these COVID-19 outbreaks again. So you don't want the negativity that comes with it, but at the same time, you want to be the first one because you're the first one to do it. And I think that's what made NASCAR so much into the spotlight the last, week and a half, is because we were the only thing going. And we've put on, to my opinion, some pretty spectacular races. The 4 races we had at Darlington and the first 2 at Charlotte, I think were fantastic races. So the ratings seem to prove that, some NASCAR fans are, some of the iRacing crowd maybe have transitioned back into actually watching the races to see a difference. Although I know that the Sunday race, a lot of people said they didn't really like it, but I think it's because, as Tom said, it's an endurance race.
Yeah. So
a lot of people don't like the 4-hour-long races, 5 hours if you count the hour-long rain delay. So I think what you'll see tomorrow night with the shorter Cup race will be an indicative of what's actually going to end up being the case for people, because if the Wednesday night race has better ratings than the 600 does, and I think you need to see, okay, maybe we should shorten some of these Cup races up a little bit and make them much more of a sprint type race, much more than an endurance race. Am I right about that, Nick?
Oh yeah, I very much enjoyed seeing the Darlington race. That was 500
the
kilometers,
500K,
miles,
246 lap race or whatever.
And the other race, the 400 miler, was fine as well. It felt nice to have that extra 100 miles clipped off. I know there was also rain threatening, but just the intensity of the race felt higher. It just seemed like a better package overall to have a race shorter like that.
Yeah, for sure. We are going to take a quick break. We'll talk about the 600 when we come back, and we'll do fantasy NASCAR before Nick has to leave us. So we'll talk about that, too, when we come back right after this on the Inside Pass WSIC.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Troutman turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Covering Statesville and the region, WSIC News is next. You've tuned in to hear local news, and so have a lot of other people. Your business could be advertising right here. Find out how affordable it can be. Call 704-872-6345, 704-872-6345.
Hey, radio family, it's Margaret Beveridge from the WSIC News Desk. The city of Thomasville decided to cancel its annual parade for Memorial Day and large ceremony due to the gathering restrictions from the coronavirus. Instead, the Thomasville Memorial Day Committee decided to host a small ceremony at Veterans Point to honor the men and women of the armed forces who never made it home. The ceremony featured speakers, performance of taps and the national anthem, and a wreath laying. A prominent feature of the ceremony was a walkway made up with 232 white flags. Each flag featured the 232 Davidson County residents who died in combat or during a conflict from 1918 to the present. NCDHHS has released its guidelines for high school and youth sports amid the coronavirus pandemic. The guidance covers a number of topics, including the requirement to adhere to mass gathering limits. For more, visit WXII12.com. Thank you for tuning in to WSIC. I'm Margaret Beveridge from the news desk.
Happening now at Randy, Mary, and Ford Lincoln in Statesville.
At the new Ford store on 77, we've got all the new Fords and all the new Lincolns you can imagine. Also across the interstate, we've just opened our new pre-owned building for Ford, and we have got a huge selection of pre-owned inventory. Shop that new Ford and Lincoln inventory and that pre-owned inventory all online at randymaryandford.com. Give us a call. We'll bring the car to your home or office.
I-77, exit 49B in Statesville.
Hey, this is Tracy Austin, the host of the Mental Fitness Matters show on WSIC. If you are a parent out there and your child is struggling with focus and attention in the classroom or at home, we may have a solution for you. At New Mentality, we are able to see what the brain is doing in real time and provide solutions for you and your family without the use of medication. Contact us today at 704-799-1270.
Warning, Jesus is coming back soon. Just like before his first coming, popular traditional teaching is actually leading people away from Jesus. The Wisdom Hour is leading people back to God's true word. It will conflict with what you have been taught. We need to stand on the solid foundation of God's true word. God's word is real, trustworthy, and has not been changed. The Wisdom Hour airs Wednesday at 11 a.m. and Saturday at 1 p.m. here on WSIC. Study the word with the Wisdom Hour.
I'm Chase Elliott, and you're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass on WSIC. You got to feel for Chase Elliott, man. That kid is just can't catch a break.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, that was again, one of those situations where the crew chief had a thought process, and I've seen that happen to many other drivers before. You're the guy that everybody thinks is going to be the winner, and you take a chance like that. I was a little surprised, honestly, that Alan Gustafson tried that. I thought that, I really wasn't sure why he thought that was, but again, he's not the first to be hung out. But after the week, the race before, when you get spun by Kyle Busch there, that's two races that should have been top three finishes that both turned out not to be. So, Chase needs to go win a race now. That's basically where he's at.
He ended up getting second. He was third across the line, but then Jimmy Johnson ended up getting disqualified because of some rear end. I guess I don't know the technical term for it, but something with the rear end of the car, rear end housing, or something of the car was not set right or something, and so he ended up getting disqualified in post-tech. So he ended up finishing in 38th position and getting one lonely point, which helps in fantasy NASCAR. Thank you, Jacob. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. But because of his disqualification, it moved Chase up to second. So now he has a runner-up finish to go with the bad finish from Darlington. But Wednesday is a whole nother night.
That still feels like a loss to them.
Was
the point I was making. Second was a great recovery, but
having a near guaranteed win with a dominant car, and then having it all just go away with one pit stop makes it all
They just got to go win a race and get put that behind them.
That is for sure. We'll talk about fantasy NASCAR in just a second. I wanted to while Nick was here. I don't know if Nick knows about this or not. I don't even know if Tom knows about it or not. But there was another incident with the iRacing World over the weekend that saw another driver losing his ride. Daniel Abt, who is a racer in the Formula E series, they had a race at home challenge over the weekend, and it was a road course that he wasn't familiar with, so he pulled a fast one on the iRacing League and decided to hire a ringer to run in his place during that race and just pose as him during the race. Well, apparently iRacing found out about it, and now not only was Daniel suspended originally by Audi, now Audi has fired him completely from the team, so now he doesn't have a right either for the foreseeable future. I thought it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's kind of sad. I mean, it's kind of we've lost way too many drivers this year to iRacing, which is a sad entity in and of itself. But Nick, there's hope for you yet, buddy, because you won the Indy 500. So, I mean, if you keep on at the pace you're going, you might be a NASCAR driver before too long.
Yeah, and the situation with Daniel Abt, because there's been a lot of conversations about this. Connor Daly's been very outspoken about it. He thinks it's ridiculous. The way I look at it, it's not so much, you cheated to win. It's the fact that, think of it this way, this was a PR event, essentially. This is all for the teams, it's for the sport to get out there for the fans.
Right.
Now imagine sending an imposter to a PR event to pretend to be you because you don't want to do it or for whatever reason. That's not going to go over very well either. And I can understand Audi's position, why that would upset them. And it's also embarrassing for them because this is all over the racing news cycle now. And I can understand where they're coming from when they do this. So I wouldn't look at it as, he cheated to win, therefore he should be punished. I look at it as you deceived your sponsors and your fans, which, no matter the situation, is a no-no.
Right.
See, I agree with that. And I know people have a hard time with the idea that a quote-unquote video game or sim or whatever you want to call it should be treated with the same seriousness as an actual event. But the fact is that if you paid money to go hear, Tony Robbins speak or whoever, the speaker, and Tony sent his twin brother,
right,
Tim, I mean, you've been deceived, and it's no different. What the event is doesn't matter. He violated the standards and the rules set by the event and tried to manipulate the outcome. Worse yet, he didn't just let his nephew do it. He hired a guy that could win. And tried to take credit for that. So I think that's the key here is that it's still an event. It doesn't matter what the event is. If it's using a video game or if you sent a fake. I mean, there were always rumors years ago, for example, that Dale Earnhardt had a double, that he had hired a double. And I actually think I'm not going to say they're not true, but I swear I saw the guy once at Watkins Glen, and he looked exactly like him, had the mustache, the glasses, and he would hire the double to kind of walk through because it would take people. But then I thought about it later, and it was like, first I'm thinking, well, this is a great idea, because these people won't leave the poor guy alone.
Right.
But then I thought, well, how many autographs, if this were true, you'd be getting fake autographs. So that made me think that story was, I don't think Dale would actually do that.
I have to look at all my Dale Earnhardt autographs now to make sure that they're actually actual autographs and not.
I mean, but it's the same kind of thing. It's deception, and it's not fans go expecting or they tune in or watch expecting something, and it doesn't. So, I mean, being fired from your ride is an extreme thing, but you did a bad thing, and it's just why people do this stupid stuff. I think people who say it's ridiculous, well, shouldn't you be saying that to the person who did it?
Exactly.
Right. Hold people accountable for their stupidity.
And it's all simple things. It's nothing complicated. Like Kyle Larson just said a word that nobody should say in the history of ever.
Don't say it.
And then, Daniel Lipp decided, I don't want to run this race. I'm not very good at it. Let me hire somebody to do it for me and then just pretend to be me. I mean, it's the simplest things. Nick, please tell me you don't have a stunt double somewhere. Did you really win the Indy 500?
It was Al Unser Jr.
Yeah.
All right, it was my dog.
Dog. Are you Alex
Finn.
Bowman now? Are you
Yeah,
going to get your
Finn.
dog involved in
It was
the
Finn.
situation?
It was Finn.
Funny stuff. All right, so the 600, of course, was Sunday night. Everybody, it's the one race on the calendar year we've come to expect it to be in that place. I feel like we missed out on all of Memorial Day because we didn't have Monaco, we didn't have the Indy 500, and all of a sudden it's 6 o'clock and we're like, oh, the 600's on. I forgot all about it because you're used to being,
it was
having that
definitely
routine.
a different Sunday.
So we talked about Jimmy Johnson's disqualification, of course, and then of course Denny Hamlin on the pace laps losing parts and pieces out of his car that saw him. He started the race 9 laps down or something like that.
something like that. Yeah, he was
and
way
so
down.
he was never able to recover. Now, yesterday, his crew chief, Chris Gabehart, his car chief, and a couple other people on the team got suspended for 4 races. Because of all of the stuff that happened during that. It was a piece of, ballast? Tungsten,
yeah. 2 pieces, actually.
That came out of the race car, which is I'm assuming it's okay to have it. You just have to have it on your car, not laying in the middle of the track.
The problem was it fell off. You didn't have it properly secured.
We don't like obstacle courses on the 600.
Yeah, the car, I forget, Almirola or somebody hit it.
Almirola.
Yeah, Almirola hit it. So that's why that's a serious problem, because tungsten weighs a ton, and you don't want another car hitting it because you take out the other car, or you certainly don't want it somehow flying up in the air, because I don't know how you'd make it do that. But I'm just making the point. That's why it's serious. It wasn't having the tungsten was legal. That's what they use. It was the fact that it fell off on the racetrack. Right. And what's interesting is Gabehart and Hamlin, Nick, are so tight. Now, we both know that there are still plenty of ways to communicate to the driver and back and forth. The driver can't during the race, but the crew chief, it's still going to be Chris Gabehart driving the operation. He's just going to be doing it remotely. So I don't know that it's such a disadvantage as it would have been years ago before all the technology that allows that to happen so easily. But it's still going to be different for him, and at a time when he was kind of riding the crest of a wave too. And, now he's had some bad luck and he's without some key people going forward for a bit. So going to be interesting. But I guess the solace for him is that he's already in the playoffs, so he doesn't have to worry about it as much.
Right.
Yeah.
So Race Chaser has its own fantasy NASCAR, and we have a feud going that's almost as rivalry of Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott between me and Nick, because I caught Nick. I actually passed him, and then he passed me back. Now Nick I have a slim 3-point lead over Nick right now.
Not if Chase won like he was supposed to.
Well, that's true, but he didn't. So anyway, in any event,
and I'm 6 laps down.
I've threatened to quit. I threatened to quit the fantasy game last week because I was leading, and I was like, no, I don't want Nick to catch me, so I'm just going to bow out now.
He's going to retire.
But see, I don't invent coronavirus to stay ahead. I just quit. That's how I do things. I just hit the reset button and turn it off. I pull a Bubba Wallace and say I just quit. But anyway, so we're going to go to Charlotte tomorrow night for the 500K race. I picked Alex Bowman for the 600. He finished 19th, although he led it a little bit.
Yep.
Chase Elliott finished second, which was Nick's pick. Jacob picked Jimmy, and Jimmy got DQ'd, although he finished second place.
Yeah.
But he gets one only point, so thank you, Jacob. And then Tom went out on a limb and picked Christopher Bell, and Christopher actually had a top 10 finish.
He was up there
Tom
for
gained
a
little
while
bit of ground
problems.
in the fantasy standings, and then of course, by virtue of contractual obligation, our producer Red has to pick Chris Bell because he works for Levine Family Racing, so he has to have Chris every week. So obviously, Red's pick is Christopher Bell. Jacob picked Martin Truex Jr. on last week's Madness show, so that'll be Jacob's pick for tomorrow night. So Nick, what say you? Who is your pick for tomorrow night's 500K race?
I'm going to double down, Chase Elliott again.
If you pick Chase enough, eventually you're going to end up, you're going to end up with the win.
Those Hendrick cars are strong in the 600.
They are.
That's true. That is very true. So I'm going to stick with my pick of Alex Bowman because I feel like he had a little bit of bad luck, and I feel like if he hadn't had the bad luck, he would have finished higher in the standings. So I'm going to stick with Alex Bowman because I feel like he's got another win coming somewhere in the near future. Tom, what about you?
I'll take Jimmy Johnson. We'll just make it a Hendrick sweep here, except for Red, who has Chris Bell by default. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like the Hendrick cars in performance, if you look at them as a group, for the most part, are right up there with everybody else and should have won a couple of these races. But, they're like this close to being the dominant team in NASCAR right now.
Yep.
And they just aren't finishing the job. So if we can just get them to start finishing the job, I think both Jimmy Johnson and William Byron are going to get a win here pretty quick. And I believe wholeheartedly Chase will get multiple wins before we're done with the season. And I think, obviously, Bowman already has that. So I think Alex again, they're all at this point playoff contenders and championship contenders, and I'm kind of surprised at this point in the season just how strong they've all been. And I would watch out for Jimmy Johnson because it is his last year.
Right.
So that guy has more to race for than probably anybody because he's trying to prove a point. He'd love to go out with the 8th championship, and I'm starting to believe the odds are drastically increasing that he could wind up in that mix going down the stretch right now with the way that car's running.
That is true. Well, Nick, I know you got to run, buddy, but have a great week, and we will talk to you again soon. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and go out there and win another Indy race before too long.
Yes, thank you guys.
Your ego needs the help. I'm just kidding. Have a great day. We will be back with more of the Inside Pass
he hung up on
right
you.
after this on WSIC.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Lincolnton turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
As we get back to a new normal, please remember that Piedmont Healthcare is open for your everyday healthcare needs. Please call to schedule an appointment today at 833-842-4968. We offer in-office video and telephone appointments for your convenience. Piedmont Healthcare, your trusted source for excellent healthcare.
For WSIC, I'm Fox 46 meteorologist Nick Koser. Overnight, that low will drop down to about 63 under cloudy skies. Tomorrow, more clouds, more rain, 90% chance for showers and storms. Some of those showers will be heavy, a high of 72. Thursday, cloudy, a 60% chance for rain, and a high of 82. From the Neighborhood Stormwatch Forecast Center, I'm meteorologist Nick Koser. Be sure to catch Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane today on Fox 46 News at 5.
Good morning. This is Margaret Beveridge with your latest news. A man armed with a knife was shot by a Union County Sheriff's deputy after he reportedly interrupted an outdoor church service Sunday by cursing at the congregation. The incident occurred outside the Oak Grove Baptist Church on the 4000 block of Newtown Road near Waxhaw. Christopher Ross from Monroe faces charges of disorderly conduct for interfering with the church service, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon against law enforcement officers, and resist, delay, and obstructing an officer. Kintegra Health of Statesville hosted a coronavirus testing drive-thru on Friday in Signal Hill Mall's parking lot. Healthcare workers waited in front of Kintegra's bus to meet people in their cars to administer the tests. For more, visit statesville.com. WSIC is working around the clock to help keep you informed, so visit WSICFM.com as well as our Facebook page, and stay tuned right here for more.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then, sentences gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. Babbel is created by language experts who use the spaced repetition method to help you learn quickly and remember what you learned. With Babbel, you can speak a new language. Babbel. Language for life. Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com or download the Babbel app and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
This is Justin Lofton, and you're listening to the best guys on the radio, the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass on WSIC. Randy Miller, Tom Baker. Nick Degroot was on a minute ago, but he has to go feed his ego with iRacing, so he'll be back in a couple of weeks. He's usually on at the end of every month to talk about racing, but NASCAR's really been the only thing that we've gotten up until this point. IndyCar starts next week, so we'll have a preview of that. Speaking of IndyCar, I know Governor Abbott, who is the Texas Republican governor, on Friday said that he is okay if motorsports wants to bring fans into the stands on a limited capacity. He's okay with that. He opened it up for that. But Eddie Gossage and the guys at TMS have said, it's a little bit too soon. For this to be able to turn this around in enough time to get fans in the stands for the IndyCar race. So Indy will not have fans in the stands next weekend for the IndyCar race. But I'm with you, Tom. I still think that the Indianapolis is going to be where it's going to happen. I think that's where it's going to. kickoff.
It's July 4th weekend, right? So I think Sunday technically would be the 5th, but you've got the doubleheader there with IndyCar and NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
You got Roger Penske, right? So, and again, the governor in Indiana really, I think he wants this to happen. There's going to be a race at Lucas Oil Raceway 2 weeks prior to that, which it's a short track. Used to be Indianapolis
My
Raceway
favorite
Park
track
for those
in the world.
Yeah, it's a great track.
I love it.
Super modifieds, must-see sprint cars, and Midwest compacts, all on the schedule for that day, which is, I think it's the 20th, I want to say, of June, whatever that Saturday is of that weekend. And they are going to have fans in a limited capacity. So my assumption is, if they're going to have fans in a limited capacity, then I think, 4th of July, I think you'll see fans allowed at Indianapolis. But again, this is very subjective right now because, it depends where you are. The blue states are not going to allow it as quickly as the red states. That's just how it is. And so, it's all got to just be race by race. But I think July 4th weekend, you're going to see a lot of these areas start to open things up a little bit because I think they see that the people are just getting a little frustrated here and a little tired, and the tone is changing. And when that happens that, leaders behave differently. So, I think you'll see it in Indy again. I don't know where else because it's just going to be situational depending on where the location is and, what's going on in that area.
Right. So as we mentioned, the Truck Series gets back going tonight. 95 days since they've had a race. The last race they had, I believe, was Vegas in early February.
Yeah.
Typically, their off season is about 91 days, so they've already surpassed their typical off season. But I know they're all ready to go. The last couple of weeks we've had Ben Rhodes on the show, and then we've had Christian Eckes on the show.
Pole.
He's on the pole tonight. So yeah. See what happens when you come on our show. You win the pole.
Yeah.
So as Ben will start on the pole for tonight's North Carolina Education Lottery 200 truck race. Tyler Ankrum is going to start in the P2 position, followed by Tyler Gray, then Matt Crafton, Austin Hill, Tanner Gray. Sorry.
Yeah.
Austin. So Jayski has made a typo. Christian Eckes, Ty Majeski, Johnny Sutter, Grant Enfinger, and Stuart Friesen are the top 10. So that'll be the top 10 starters. And, by the way, the bounty is up for grabs tonight in the race.
Yes, but it's different now.
Yes.
Kevin Harvick has decided that instead of the $50,000 that he had put up to the first full-time Cup driver who can beat Kyle Busch on the track in a truck race, he has decided that $50,000 will go to a COVID relief fund of that driver's choice. Correct. If they succeed.
Correct.
For some reason, that was hard for me to get out. Chase Elliott.
It makes sense in theory.
I think, Chase?
Chase starts 26th. Brandon Poole's in the race. He starts 32nd. And John Hunter Nemechek is 38th.
Then John Hunter, yeah. So there are three drivers, of which I think Chase would be the one, to me, that would have the best shot if there is to be one.
Although
of those three Cup drivers.
Brendan Poole finished second to Kyle last year in this very race.
That's true. So but I just, I feel like if somebody's going to beat Kyle, and I doubt it, but if somebody's going to beat Kyle, it's going to be one of the other Kyle Busch trucks, or it's going to be someone like a Tyler Ankrum or, one of the Thor Sport Ben Rhodes or somebody. I don't think you can just drop into a truck race and on a one-race deal, and I understand Chase is driving for GMS, but it's hard to just drop in and go beat Kyle Busch. It's because, you don't have the laps in the truck to go in. But who knows? It'll be interesting. I just don't see it happening here at Charlotte anyway.
How about a full circle if it was Chase Elliott that ended up getting the win over Kyle Busch after all of the things that they've been through?
That would be great
over the last week or so. It'd be a great idea. So Steve Phelps was on a couple of making his way around the radio and television interview segments over the weekend, talking about how great it was that NASCAR was able to get this all done, and they've been able to do these last 6 races with no problems whatsoever. Nobody's having COVID or no outbreaks or anything like that. I mentioned the Health and Human Services Department was at the 600 on Sunday, and they loved everything that NASCAR was doing to make everything, make all the protocols right and everything. And somebody asked him about fans in the stands, and he said, the very near future, we all seem like Indy is going to be the place that's going to happen at, so we'll see what happens there. And then another interesting article that came out over the weekend, actually came out yesterday, was about Brad Keselowski's win in the 600, because a lot of people are pointing, I guess, fingers at him because he hasn't re-signed with Penske yet. And somebody pointed to the fact that when Simon Pagenaud won the Indy 500 last year, the very next day he re-signed his contract with Penske because Penske, wanted him in a multi-year deal after winning the Indy 500. Brad has won at least one race ever since he's been with Penske. He now is the most recent Penske winner. But when they asked him last night about Sunday night after his win about his contract status, he said it wasn't entirely up to him, that there were other things that had to be worked out or whatever. So people are pointing to the fact that he's kind of dodging those direct questions about whether or not he's going to be with Penske for the foreseeable future. A lot of people still think that he will be in the 48 car in 2021.
Well, I will say this. Right now, it's not even June, okay?
Right.
We got a long rest of the year. Brad's right. It's not up to him. Ultimately, even if he said, I want to be back, Penske's got to want him back. The sponsors have to be, able to. There's a lot in play here. If you were to ask me now, what do I think will be Brad Keselowski's future? I would tell you I think there's a pretty good chance you see him in the 48 car. Now, with that being said, I think his first option would probably be to stay where he is. I'm not buying into the whole that people are trying to start this feud between him and Joey Logano, and I think that's dumb.
Right. Joey won't feud with anybody, not in person anyway.
Right, and if there's any truth to any of that, then Brad needs to leave. If he's, if it's a situation where for whatever reason he and his teammates aren't getting along, he's going to go. Because he would be the cancer at that point. And I'm not saying that he, maybe there's reasons. So I'm not making him that. I'm simply saying if you're unhappy, you got to go do something different. But I think signs are pointing. Because here's what I believe about the 48 car. The 48 car is not going to be filled by someone who isn't able to come in and run well basically from the start. So the way this is trending, I think either Mr. H pulls Ross Chastain if there's no opportunity at Ganassi. I can't see Ross waiting down in Xfinity for another year or two for Kurt Busch to retire or Matt Kenseth if Matt wants to come back and there's an offer made. Mm-hmm. So, Ross goes and looks and sees the 48 and if Mr. H wants him. But in my opinion right now, I think if Brad can give you 2 to 3 more good years of competition, Brad's the perfect guy to take that spot because he continues to help groom the younger drivers over there. And he's still, remember Mr. H years ago loaned him to Penske.
Right.
And said that at some point maybe he'll bring him back. Mm-hmm. Timing might be there to do it. But again, you got 1 year left next year with the current car, and then the new car comes in. So that's going to play into this too. Does Brad want to be in Cup when the new car comes in? If he does, then he'd be a great guy because of his knowledge of the cars themselves. He'd be a great guy to have. If he doesn't, then you go get somebody young like a Gregson or whoever it might be. And you go with them as your future.
Yeah. I think if he does sign with Hendrick, it would be the 25, not the 48. I don't think they'd put him in the 48. I think they would resurrect the 25 for him because he was in the 25 anyways when he was Hendrick before. So
no, he was supposed to be in the 5.
He was supposed to be in the 5, but I think when he made his first start, it was the 25 because I think it was GoDaddy sponsorship.
Maybe
back then when he was.
Yeah, he was supposed to be in the 5, and then Mark Martin showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
The first deal that Mark ever did by text to drive a car.
Messed up with that. So anyway, our thanks to Nick Degroot for joining us today. Always a pleasure to talk to Nick. And next week we're going to have Todd Gilliland from the Gander Outdoor Truck Series joining us. So that's always a pleasure to talk to him as well. So you guys be safe. Have a great week. Join us Thursday night for Motorsports Madness, and we will see you back here next Tuesday for the Inside Pass on WSIC. For Tom Baker, I'm Randall. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.